All right, welcome back to the Cheers to Comics podcast. I am your host, Brian Wayne, and this is a very, very special Creator Corner. This week, if you've been following the podcast at all, you know I'm a super fan of Chew. I've covered 10 volumes now through these trade negotiations episodes I've been doing. Go back and listen to those. But we've got Rob Guillory himself on the podcast. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm honored to have you on the show. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but I can actually say that I am a super fan. You were a long-term goal when I first started this podcast. I thought if I can get Rob on the show, I've made it. And then you said yes a couple weeks ago, and I've been oozing since, man. You are my favorite working artist in comics. You truly are. Your style is mind-blowing. So this is a big treat for me. I'm ultra excited. And
Well,
once again, honored to have you, man.
cool,
So,
man. I'm very flattered. I'm blushing a little bit over here. No, it's always great to hear that people are connecting with your work. So I appreciate it.
well, it's actually Farmhand that I missed Chew when it came out. So I had no idea what was happening. That Chew was a thing for whatever reason it had ended. But when I started collecting again, and then Farmhand came out, and I saw that cover, and I thought, holy shit, what is this art? This is the
Mm.
art that. Oh man, if I were to be in comics, this is how I would want to draw. This is how I want to see my comics. And then as I'm checking out Farmhand #1, a guy in line and the comic book store clerk at Mile High both said, if you haven't read Chew, you need to go back and do this. So I went through and I bought all the volumes of Chew, and that's how but if it wasn't for Farmhand, I wouldn't have been able to, I mean, discover the the beauty that is Chew. And
Awesome.
yeah, and Farmhand has been no letdown. I mean, it is, and this is cool because you're actually writing and drawing this one, and but I think I want to go. We're definitely going to get into Farmhand in a minute, but I kind of want to get a little bit of background for the listeners on what you're about, man. I mean, let's start out. When did you first start getting into comics? What was it that drew you into the industry, the medium?
Well, I mean, I had a couple of uncles back in the '80s who were kind of like the prototypical comic book geeks. Like they had like a giant closet full of comics. I mean, I remember just kind of rifling through this giant collection of stuff. And I mean, it was just, just old school George Perez, Teen Titans, and God, what else? Green Lantern Corps and John Byrne X-Men, and I just fell in love with the medium right then and there. And I started collecting my own, started my own collection in about the fourth grade. And it was actually around that time that I started kind of dabbling and making my own comics.
Did you
And then
start out writing or drawing, or was it just I'm doing both?
well, there wasn't much writing involved. It was basically just me scribbling stuff on, random stories about, superheroes fighting, because that's pretty much all I knew of comics at the time.
Gotcha. All
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I kind of started there and just always, always drew. I was always working solo because I mean I'm from Louisiana, and back then we didn't really have. I mean, this is pre-internet, so I mean we didn't really have much of a comic industry or exposure to the comic industry outside of the few comic shops we had around. So and we didn't really know what went into making comics or getting them published. So I was always kind of doing my own thing and just writing my own comics, drawing them. And honestly didn't become even aware about how you broke into comics. And I didn't take comics seriously as like a career path for me until college. It was back in 2000, 2001, where the internet's in full swing and there's all this information just out there about how you actually break into this crazy industry. So it was about that time I started going to conventions and actually, had this really, I don't know where it came from, but I had this kind of game plan right from the beginning that I would just go to a convention every 6 months because I was still in college. So I couldn't afford much, but I was taking like Greyhound buses and renting cars and just traveling,
All right. Yeah, playing
traveling.
the road game, grinding it out like,
Yeah, yeah,
like you
yeah,
should.
yeah,
Right
yeah. But
on.
but I basically did that. It's just hitting a few conventions every year for like 6 or 7 years. And by that time, I graduated college, and in about 2008, that's when I was offered Chew with John Layman.
Wow, man. And how did I mean, did you meet him at a con? Is that what it came down to? Is that
No, no, it's actually a funny story because whenever I was just kind of considering comics, I was like I said, I grew up with the big two stuff, so like I didn't know about indie comics. I knew about Image Comics, but even Image back then was just superhero comics.
right? You Spawn and all that, man. Oh, yeah. Okay,
Right,
keep
right.
going.
So like basically, I found like really indie comics. Like, I started discovering artists like Jim Mafood. I don't know if you know him. Jim Mafood.
I'm familiar.
He's been around forever. He's done tons of indie comics. He did a book for Image called Girl Scouts,
Okay.
and Stupid Comics. He's actually become a good friend of mine since then, which is cool. But he was kind of the guy that opened my eyes to there being an entirely different way of doing comics outside of just the superhero stuff. And when I was kind of exploring that, I ran across this book called Puffed, that was by Image Comics. This is again 2001ish, and
Okay.
it happened to be written by John Layman, and I just really liked John's sense of humor. I liked the book. I loved the art style. It was drawn by a guy named Dave Crosland, and it just stuck with me. And they worked together a few times since then, and they did a book. A Scarface sequel for IDW years later.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. So I kind of followed their work and became a fan of Layman's work. So eventually, just because the way comics work, it's like the more you go to conventions, you kind of realize everyone sort of knows everyone else.
Hmm.
It's a pretty small industry.
Yeah,
So like
even as con goers too, you start realizing that, oh man, I saw you back in Milwaukee or whatever, and you're just, yeah. I mean, it's not even
right,
necessarily the people at the table. So yeah, it's small
exactly.
world.
Right. So like I started working with a guy named Brandon Jerwa at Tokyo Pop. He was a writer, and we were
Okay.
doing some stuff for Tokyo Pop that ended up not getting published. But uh, Brandon Jerwa just happened to be good friends with John Layman. So John had been kicking around Chew to various publishers for years, and everyone had just kept telling him, don't publish this book. Like this book will ruin your career. Like don't publish this book. So he, Layman being, as stubborn and rebellious as he is, he just decided, screw it. I'm going to do this book. I'm going to finance it myself, and I'm going to find an artist. And Image Comics had agreed to publish it. He just needed to find an artist. So I met him through Brandon Jerwa, and to his surprise, like I already knew about his work. Like I was actually like I was one of the few guys that actually read Puffed. So like I was actually a big fan. And actually, like I think a lot of my comedic sensibilities in comics were sort of formed by reading Layman's comics in the early days. So it actually made sense that
Wow.
like 7 or 8 years after I decided to get into comics, the next thing you know, I was actually working with him and making shoes. So it actually it rolled back around in a really kind of funny way.
It was meant to be, man, because Chew is one of when people say, okay, I want to get into comics, but I'm not big on Superman and Iron Man. I don't like superheroes. The first thing I say is Chew because it's a hero-driven story with superpowers, but by no means is it a superhero type of feeling story.
Hmm.
It's so different and unique, and I can't think of anything else out there that I mean, I could really compare it to, or even, I mean, put any type of level on. It's
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we've been it's been very surprising. Like, kind of the story that we hear more than anything else in regards to people picking up Chew is, most of our readers are people who have never read comics, and Chew was their very first comic, or they grew up with superheroes and they kind of lapsed at some point, and they came back, but they didn't want to, jump back into superheroes. They wanted something a little more mature and alternative, and that's when they
mhm,
discovered Chew. So like
yes.
and there's a lot of couples who read it together. There's a lot. We actually have a pretty large female fan base, which was not expected for a book about a cannibal cop.
Well, I
Like that.
mean, your female characters are amazing. I mean, Amelia is a badass. She has one of the coolest powers out there, and almost like it's Tony's other half. Like Tony gets actually a shot of enjoying life because of Amelia. He gets to enjoy things because of her pathic ability. I'm not sure what the actual term you guys use for that. I make up a lot
Oh
of words when
yeah,
I'm describing Chew.
she's a Sabo Scrivener. She's
Yes.
I don't remember all of the food power names, but
Oh, how
there's a
could you?
few. Yeah, there's a few that I remember, and the core ones are the ones I kind of
Yeah.
recall.
Yes. Yes. Oh man. But no, so I could definitely see the female magnetism towards that because I mean even Sister Tony, which I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything. She's just as badass too, and she continues to be badass beyond her arc, and it's
Yeah,
for so you I don't really I'm not surprised at all is what I'm getting. I think it's really the book for everybody, or at least someone with a level of maturity. That's for sure. I wouldn't
well,
read it as a
yeah.
bedtime story to your kids, but
Right, right. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, my wife is not a comic fan. Like, I mean, she appreciates the medium, but she just doesn't really like 90% of what's out there.
Hmm.
But whenever John, pitched Chew to me, I was actually it was a Tuesday. We were about to fly out to Comic Con, the San Diego Comic Con, the very next day, and he sent me the pitch and he sent me the script for the first issue, and we were going to fly out and meet at Comic Con the next day. And my wife actually read the first issue of Chew before I ever did. Like I was going to take the gig sight unseen just because I was such a big fan of his work.
Hmm.
But like she actually read it first and she loved it. And my wife is very, very, very selective about what she likes. And she
Well,
immediately was like, "This is awesome. This is going to be perfect for you. Like your art is going to be the perfect fit for this." And so that alone kind of surprised me and gave me a good feeling for the book.
well, speaking of the art, I mean, where does Taylor Wells come in? At what point, because Taylor Wells does an amazing job on these colors as well. I know it says color assist, so I'm not sure exactly what level, Taylor Wells or how much of the color is you or Taylor, but either way, I mean,
Yeah, no, she's
it's
phenomenal. Well, we had three color assistants on Chew. What happened was, in the very beginning, the first three issues of Chew, I did the art completely solo, including the colors.
okay.
And I at some point I realized, holy crap, like this is gonna go beyond 5 issues, and I need to
Yeah.
figure out like how am I gonna put out a monthly comic. And there was no way I was gonna do it, handling the colors, solo. So at some point I brought on an assistant to basically do like the color flats and that sort of
Okay.
thing, kind of working. I had guides for everything for all the characters and whatnot, and that they would basically go in, do flats, and like from there I would do all the shadows and that sort of thing.
All
And
right.
Taylor, I had three color assistants. The first was Lisa Gonzalez. The second was Steven Struble. And the last was Taylor. And Taylor was with me for the longest. So she was with me, I mean, it's from issue 19 until the very end. So we worked together for a good 7 or 8 years.
Nice.
And I mean, she was an incredible help to the book. I mean, I couldn't have kept it on schedule without her. But I mean, because I mean, even with her assist, I was still spending an entire week per issue just coloring the book. So it
Wow.
was an intense, intense grind, and I could not have done it without her help.
Well, it doesn't look like anything was skipped. That's for sure. I mean, you guys clearly put everything in. I mean, I can go on and on about how beautiful the art is. The art speaks for itself, and I mean that really does clear up the what I was always confused when it said color assist, but this makes sense. It's a little bit of you, a little bit of her, and man, it meshes so well together. And then it just works so well with Layman's writing too. And I know that you were talking about how Layman's comedic ways, but those Easter eggs that you throw in, I've known you've gone on record to say that you don't remember most of them because you're just doing them as you scoot along, but there's still so many and they're all so good.
That's
So I
awesome.
mean, you clearly have your comedic wits about you too, man. So it makes me wonder how much of the comedy, I mean, you're involved in beyond just the Easter eggs and stuff, because the framing of everything you do, it's oh man, and even the horror factor as well. The combination between comedy and horror is my favorite genre in books, and I mean,
Mm.
you guys kill it, and
Thank
especially
you,
in
man.
Shoot, and then in Farmhand as well. I mean, Farmhand is more kind of on a horror suspense thing, but you still do your classic little hidden Easter eggs in there that's gonna get a giggle out of people, and I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. I had no idea that people were gonna like the Easter eggs so much. I mean, I kind of stole that from books like Watchmen. And again, like Jim Mafood is an incredible artist who, I mean, he was pretty notorious. He still does this, but I mean, he would always put little flyers and things in the background that like, were like shout outs to friends or shout
Mhm.
outs to like, other creators and that sort of thing. And I just really loved it. And I just thought, this is like an added level of entertainment here. I can go back. Like I kept for the longest, I had a copy of Watchmen just sitting on my coffee table, and I would just randomly pick it up and just kind of skim through it. And I was always finding all these little extra things that Gibbons was always slipping into the art, and I just loved that. And I just thought, well, what I want to create a book that is maximum level of entertainment, which means like I want you to feel like you can pick this up and read it several times
Yep.
and always discover new things about it. And I like to think with Chew and especially with Farmhand that there's different layers of reading to it. That maybe you'll read it first for the story, then you'll go back for the art, and then you'll go back and like see what else I have in it, in terms of Easter eggs and that sort of thing. And I mean, now that with Farmhand that I'm writing it, the way I'm writing it, there's so much. It's such a slow burn that like it's actually been kind of a terrifying tightrope walk that like I've been slowly and very deliberately kind of doling out little bits of the story over at this point 11 issues, and I knew where I was going from the very beginning. And I knew that if I can just get them to issue 11, then like there'll be all this other stuff that will make sense, and then hopefully people will be able to go back again and reread everything in a completely new context. And I mean, we're at the moment, issue 11 just came out last week. Issue 12 just got shot off to the printers yesterday. I'm finishing up issue 13. I'm finishing issue 13. It's getting colored now, and I'm actually I'm about to start drawing issue 14 next week. So like, it's interesting because now I'm getting to the halfway point of the book, which Farmhand's always been planned as like a 25 to 30 issue series.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I think that's what you originally. I remember you mentioning on Twitter at one point or somewhere at one point in time that you expected to go about 30. It might have even been in. Oh shoot! I forgot. Oh, I forgot. You even had the fans name the damn segment. What's it called?
The Grassroots.
Yes, the Grassroots. That might have been.
Yeah.
I think where you announced it originally that it was planned on going about 30. But I hope that 30 is just the beginning, to be honest. I mean, I have no idea what you have planned for an ending by any means, but I feel like these characters have enough lovability, and at the same time, the story and its rereadability, like, we were discussing earlier, you're the master of that, and I know that I want to go back and read the first 10 issues again after reading 11 because I just know that this answers so much, and it also expands on this universe so much more, especially with these mud bugs and all this stuff, man. It's I can't. I'm so excited for Farmhand, and like I said, it was originally what roped me in. I think after 2 issues of Farmhand is when I said, okay, I'm buying all of Chew, and and that was right around the time when I first started this podcast. And yeah, it's this has been a big part of your art has been a major part of this podcast. Probably more segments have been talked about, or your art has been talked about than anybody else on this podcast. So it's
well, that's very, that's high praise. I mean, there's a lot of like really incredible stuff out there. I mean, and nowadays especially, I mean, there's so much content out there. I mean, even for me, being inside of the industry, like I can't even keep up. So like, so the fact that you're like, dedicating that much time to my work is really, really, I appreciate it.
Oh, it's well deserved, man. And anybody I turn on to this book, they never say, "What the fuck was this?" They're always like, "Where do I get more of this?" I send a lot of people to Mile High Comics, and I always make sure there's Chew on the shelf. So and Farmhand as well. I mean, what Farmhand? You guys, volume 1 is out in trade at this point, right?
Yeah, 1 and 2 are both out.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, 2 just came out not too long ago, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. So let's I mean, do you want to get into to more farmhand now? Because I mean, now that we talked about, you draw and chew, and we know chew, it really speaks for itself. It got you multiple Eisners, for what was it? The first one was, or new book, and then you got a best ongoing Eisner as well, I believe.
Right. Yep.
So
Yep.
I mean, yeah, no, yeah, it speaks for itself. But farmhand, I mean, you steer it off. You say, okay, I'm gonna write my own thing now. And I mean, based off kind of what I've gathered out of the conversation so far, you have a plot for everything. But so do you just go in and you just start drawing, knowing what's to come, or do you have a really detailed beats lined out for yourself already, or what's that writing process for you now, or transitioning into writing? What's that process like for you?
Well, I knew I wanted to do full scripts. I mean, I kind of talked to a lot of friends of mine in the business who were like writer artists, the Scotty Youngs and that kind of guy,
Okay.
and
Oh
basically
yeah.
just said like, how do you, what's your process? And it was all over the map. I mean, I had some people who were doing full scripts. I had some people who were, just kind of like drawing whatever they felt like and then kind of filling in dialogue, which I knew I didn't want to do, and I knew that I couldn't do because I mean, I think one of my strengths is comedic timing,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I couldn't pull off the beats unless it was scripted. I mean, I felt,
Gotcha.
and plus on top of that, I wanted to be able to kind of have flexed that muscle of writing full scripts as if I was writing for another artist for the day that in case I actually decide I do want to write for another artist.
Nice, man.
Um,
Respect.
yeah, so I mean, I thought it made sense. So yeah, at this point, I mean, I have my milestones. Like I knew the first 5 issues. I knew where I wanted to be at the end of the arc in issue 5. I knew where I wanted to be at the end of the arc in 10. I knew definitely where I wanted to be at the halfway point in issue 15. And I have my ending, but I don't map out every single issue.
Okay.
The way I kind of work is I kind of look at every arc in really broad terms. Like I knew issue 1, the first arc was going to be kind of like this arc where obviously there's the intro, and coming from Chew, I knew that there were fans that would be coming from that book that kind of had one expectation of what I did. They kind of knew me as a guy who like did goofy, funny, wacky kind of stuff with a little tinge of darkness to it. And I wanted to start transitioning people from that into something way darker, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean there was an aspect of my art that I don't feel like I really got to tap into as much as I would have liked on Shoe. And maybe Shoe just wasn't the right book for it, but there wasn't. I mean, there were gross things that happened and there were violent things that happened, but there was never really like that really hard suspenseful like horror thing that I really kind of like. I'm a really big fan of Stephen King,
Hmm.
and that kind of storytelling, the
Gotcha.
Twilight Zones and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to transition people from what they knew me from into something else. So I knew the first arc was going to be that. I would set it up in such a way where if you read the first 5 issues, the first few issues are lighter. There's some dark moments in it, but for the most part, it's kind of like what you knew me as before. And then
Correct. Yes.
and I knew there was going to be a switch that happened, and it was going to start in issue 4, and then I knew issue 5 was going to be it was going to like be really dark. Like I knew
Mm-hmm.
that I knew I was going to end the arc with a big swerve, and it was going to lead into an entirely darker book, and I've kind of done that every arc so far. So yeah, I kind of look at it in really, I kind of feel every arc out in rhythms. Like I know where Zeke, the main character, needs to be emotionally in every arc, and
All
where
right.
the other characters need to be emotionally, and I kind of write around that. So there's a plan, but at the same time, much like Shu, we have milestones, but we keep it wide open enough to where we can improvise, or I can, if I have a random crazy idea that I really like, that I can incorporate it and it would fit. So it's a really interesting tightrope walk.
Nice. Well, I, wow, man, you I'm blown away because it's just so crispy that you would think that everything is completely 100% mapped out to a T going into it. It's so I'm impressed. I'm impressed. And this isn't. I mean, this is really your first time actually being published as a getting a writer credit, right? As far as you know being in the comic book industry. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
wow, wow, man. I'm really digging where this story is going. I mean, we could. I mean, I have been covering this book long enough. There's a few spoilers and stuff we could drop, but I definitely don't want to, ruin anything by any means. So, I mean, but I do kind of. I'm seeing this expanded this universe being expanded the years, and one thing that we didn't really get to see in Chew, besides obviously the more darker things that you're talking about flexing, which I'm so excited about. I'm always so thrilled about, man. That's definitely the stuff that draws me into comics. But these creatures now, I mean, this is, these mud bugs, man. It's, I mean, just these crawdads. It's so. Oh man, is this something that we could expect more of? You think, as far as not just the crawdads itself, but are we going to see more? This universe expand? I mean, to where we get to see you really flex your real imagination as far as how you're going to haunt us on these pages.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first half of the book I always kind of planned is, um, just really slowly unveiling things. Like, and there's a lot of, again, like I said, like that first arc especially was just planting a whole lot of seeds. Like, pardon the pun, but like it was laying on this groundwork and giving hints of things that were going to come later. So, like, if you look at the first few issues, there's a lot of instances of things, monsters and infected, creatures in the woods and that sort of thing. There's a lot of like the seeds effect on the local ecosystem, and that continues. That's a big part of the third arc. But on top of that, I've been slowly kind of showing, how it's affecting the people, the transplants.
Yes.
So yeah, there's some stuff coming, especially issue 13 through 15, through the halfway point of the series, that really kind of amps things up. And if you remember in issue 8, which was the issue with the guy with the flower eyes on the cover.
Yes. Oh yeah, man. Damn near
Yeah,
takes out old Jenkins.
yeah, yeah. Like this guy was kind of like the foreshadowing of like tonally where the book's going. Because I
Oh,
knew it.
and
I didn't. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I remember letting out an audible grunt when that went down. Like I was pretty stoked because at that point I realized, like, oh shit, this is so much more than I thought it was already. So it's, yeah, no, that was definitely a turning point in the book for me as well. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I want it to be a thing where like, we've invested so much in the characters that, when things happen, when violence happens or death happens, it's really significant. It's really meaningful. And, it's been very deliberate how I've been kind of pacing it out. So like, yeah, there's a lot more coming in terms of, the next step in sort of the evolution of these plant people. Cause I mean, there's things that, again, I've been really kind of planting the seeds for in terms of the Mare Thorn storyline and what's up with her and her background with Jedediah and the founding of the farm and the creation of the seed. I mean,
Well, and now we've got new family members being more directed towards we got an older an older generation with the grandma, and then now
yep,
it looks like a brother that's getting
yeah,
ready to come into this. So
yeah. There's a lot there. I mean, that's, I mean, issue 11 really was the hardest issue I've ever written of the book so far. I mean, it was, and I knew that there was more to the story that I wasn't going to get to in the first 10 issues. Like, I know I wanted to get into the backstory of who the Jenkins family are, and where Freetown came from. And I I wrote different versions of the first issue.
okay.
And the very first version of it pretty much laid it all out in the first issue. The history of the town, the history of like the racial violence and like this kind of demonic aspect behind it all. That stuff was all in issue 1. initially.
Yeah,
And
well, I mean, it was enough to rope me in, that's for sure. I mean,
yeah,
that's
but I mean, pacing wise, I just decided, you know what, like I think I'm gonna put that, I'm gonna put that on the back burner and just unveil it at the right time. So that's kind of what I ended up doing. Where
okay.
like the first 10 issues are just, kind of putting the reader right in the middle of it, kind of experiencing it with the family, and then issue 11 kind of dials it back and gives you, a peek behind the veil, so to speak. Um, and yeah, there's more of that kind of thing coming. But yeah, the third arc in general, I'm really, really, really proud of. It finally kind of unveils the big secret behind the entire story of the Jenkins family and why this is happening. And what happened with Zeke's mom, what happened with Monica Thorne. That finally gets revealed this arc, and I think it is the most powerful thing about the story. Like, is that center point of the story. I think it's going to be really, really, really profound. I'm excited
Well,
about it.
well, that definitely has me excited because if that's only the halfway point, then I mean, knowing what you're capable of doing already, I can only imagine what the backside of this story ends up doing. Oh man, you have me so excited right now. Farmhand is. This is amazing, man, and it's so good. In fact, that there is a. I mean, it's you guys are working on a pilot right now, aren't you?
Yeah, we actually, I announced the comic back in February of 2018. So like immediately there was interest. So we started kind of like shopping it around and ended up at AMC, which was kind of a crazy surprise. You know, it's funny, like with Chew had been optioned. It's been optioned a handful of times at this point. And it's been, it's been a rocky situation with Chew. I mean, John and I have kind of like learned a lot about kind of, dealing with Hollywood and what to do and what not to do.
Well, how much
Um,
money do you guys need? I'm gonna write you guys a check right now. Let's make that happen.
well, I mean, the hard part about Chew was really like finding the right creative voice to do it.
Yeah.
There have been a handful of scripts written, pilot scripts for live action of Chew that no one will ever read. And and some of them are actually pretty good. But, what was so frustrating about it was, we were hiring these people to write our scripts when really, like, John or I could probably do a better job of like actually writing it, because I mean, who knows it better than we do? Um,
Exactly.
so with Farmhand, I kind of like, I just decided, screw this. Like if there's anyone who's actually interested in adapting this, that's great. But I am coming with it. I
Good
am
for
part of
you.
the deal, and like I actually want to like guide this, because I'm really protective over it. I'm very, very attached to it. It's very personal, and AMC was really into that, and it was interesting, like, because when we actually did the phone calls, my manager at the time had kept telling me like, yeah, they're really into it, AMC's really, really into it. But the more you kind of like, hang around Hollywood, the more you see that, they're always really positive. Like they're really, like, really, really like
Ah,
positive about everything, even when like things aren't actually as positive as they say. Like
hmm.
everything's always sunshine. So like I
That's
kind of was cynical and was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't like it that much. But then I actually like talked to AMC and they were really excited about it. Like they're like, hey, no, we really like this. This is like really, really a lot of fun, and we can't wait to do this. So
Well, and you
like,
know that they have deep pockets too, and this is a book that deserves, and it's in the manner that it's drawn, it's gonna need a few bucks thrown into it, I would imagine, to do it proper. So it's awesome that if any of those programs are gonna pick or networks are gonna pick it up. I think I couldn't be happier it's AMC, because even if
yeah,
Sci-Fi were to do it, I think that there just wouldn't be as much love thrown into what the network would be able to willing to throw into it, just because they're not as big as AMC. I mean, The
yeah.
Walking Dead has done a wonder for them, and so I mean, I don't want to name drop The Walking Dead, but I can see this on right now, right after stay tuned after The Walking Dead. Farmhand. It's
Well,
just,
well, AMC. I mean, the beautiful thing about them is they and you can tell it. You can kind of see this just by looking at the shows they've made. You know, when you look at shows like The Walking Dead or like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or Mad Men, you see that like there's a deliberate vision like being enacted, and it's like it's the creator's vision. Like
It's
that they actually like
yes.
really they invest in like in their creators and let them, you know, they're focused on telling this story as the best way possible.
And I really do
And
feel like they appreciate the art that goes into it. It's not so much about what we can get out of that as far as, money wise. Yeah, it's not, yeah, eventually they're gonna, Walking Dead stuff like that. It gets kind of let's make as much money off of this as we can. But you could still tell that they appreciate the art that these creators put into it, and they let them have that type of freedom. The same thing with everything else beyond just The Walking Dead, all that stuff. So that's what
right.
makes me excited that I know that this is going to be a Guillory production, man. This is
Yeah, and it's that's been the biggest, the most exciting part of it was just they're so passionate about giving me the space to really explore this and put my voice into it. And like my showrunner is phenomenal. I'm teamed up with a writer named executive producer named Latoya Morgan, who's very she's been around the block. She's written for Shameless, for The Walking Dead.
mm-hmm.
She's for Into the Badlands. She's
Yes.
phenomenal. She's really passionate about this, and she's a really big shoe fan, which was kind of like that's actually how we met. You know, I was kind of when we were doing the interviews with just different Hollywood folks. You know, before AMC ever even came into the picture, I'm new to this whole screenwriting thing. You know, I can write comic book scripts, but screenplays are a bit of a different beast. So, the plan was to team me up with kind of an elder writer, kind of an Obi-Wan, to kind of show me the ropes. So Latoya was one of the first people I interviewed, and I introduced myself because I assume no one knows who I am, especially in Hollywood. And I was just like, hey, I did this book called Chew, and she's like, oh no, I know who you are. Like I'm a big fan of Chew. Like holy crap, like really? And we hit it off, and it was just a great talk. And we got off the phone, and I didn't hear from her for like, I think 3 to 6 months or something.
Mm.
And the next thing you know, like AMC pops up, and I find out that Latoya's been behind the scenes talking to AMC and just talking up Farmhand. Like, you guys need to like read Farmhand. You guys need to read Farmhand.
How many
So
issues
like,
are out at this point?
I think it was the first 6 or
Okay.
so.
Definitely enough
Um,
to rope anybody in, that's for sure.
right. So Latoya's been a huge part of this. She's been phenomenal to work with. I'm writing the script solo, and she's my showrunner. She's overseeing me, and she's kind of showing me the ropes in terms of, how Hollywood works and what the network is looking for and what they're not looking for. At the same time, like, my vision is the central thing to this, and she's been an amazing part of this whole process.
That's so awesome, man. I'm over the moon about this. As soon as it was announced, I mean, for one, I wasn't surprised because I knew it was. I mean, it's obviously deserving of it, but to see that it was announced through AMC and then knowing, like all the things that we just discussed, moments ago, there's all signs point to just absolute success of this. And I mean, I tell you what, as soon as that pilot airs, this book is. I mean, it's going to be trades printed in the 11th, 12th printing. It's going to fly off. I mean, I'm surprised it's not that far down the road already.
Well,
I know it's still early, but
the one thing I learned on Chew, after all of its like, false starts and whatnot, is like, you can't count your chickens before they're hatched. So like, for me, like, I'm cautiously optimistic about the whole thing. Like, I'm really excited about it. No matter what, this has done more than I really expected it to do. I'm super proud of what I've done with the book. I'm excited about what's coming, in the future, and just the opportunity to kind of dabble in this new medium that I never considered like writing screenplays. This wasn't what I set out to do. I just set out to draw like, cybernetic chickens and like that kind of thing. Like that's
oh,
pretty much
toil
what
for life, man.
right. That's what I got into comics to do. So like, to get to do this, at such, with creative partners at AMC that like, I mean, it's AMC. Like, that's not,
Right.
they're not exactly someone I expected to be working with. It's kind of an amazing experience. So like, but yeah, I mean, it hinges on the pilot script. If I can produce a pilot script that they're really passionate about, then it goes forward. So we'll see what happens. I'm just putting all of my effort into this pilot script. So fingers crossed.
All right, so that was my next question: is how far into production are we? We've got a pilot, so the pilot script is still in development at this point. So you guys haven't thought about, or I'm sure you've thought about casting, but have you got that far down the road yet?
No, not at all. I mean, I have no idea how long this could take. We've had that conversation, but really it depends on how long it takes to get the script right.
Okay.
And that we'll see. The last I was told by the network is that it's in good shape. So so
Right
we'll see
on.
what happens from there. We're kind of going back and forth on notes, and fingers crossed.
Fantasy casting, who's Zeke?
Oh God, who's Zeke? I have no idea. I mean, I would assume it's probably going to be an unknown guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few guys I really like. Like I really like, Donald Glover was kind of an influence.
Dude, oh
Just
my God, that was yeah, that was kind of where I was going with that. I could totally see him being a Zeke for sure.
oh God, yeah. I mean, well, it's funny. Like I've joked about this, but like whenever I was coming up with the look for Zeke, usually what happens is whenever I'm designing a character, I'll either have a specific person in mind in terms of like an actor or something, or I'll just go to Google and just start looking at images. And with him, I knew his character type, and I just kind of typed into Google I just typed in moody black guys, and all these pictures of Donald Glover came up. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like he would be he could be really good at this character. So
Well,
like,
he's incredibly talented, but I feel like it's just a part that would it would do him so well. It really would. It's perfect. I don't know. We make that happen.
I have no idea. But yeah, beyond that, like, I mean, I have dumb, like crazy, I'm totally a fanboy about this stuff. Like there's, there's some fan casting I would love for like Jedediah in particular. Like I think if we do get that far and we do make it to casting, I do think that is the role that's going to be everything. So like, there's a few guys I really like, and honestly, the guy who I thought could have been kind of interesting as Jedediah was he actually just died like last week. Um, uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh my God, he would have been the best.
yeah, I think his name is just John Witherspoon, or is it Clarence Witherspoon?
John Witherspoon. Clarence
Right.
Witherspoon was a basketball player, I think.
Okay, right. I'm horrible with names. I know everything he's been in. He's awesome, but he's always been like a funny guy, and
Oh
I've never
man.
really seen him as just like kind of like the dark grandpa. So like he was kind of my guy for a bit.
Dude, that would
Um,
have got him a nod, or an Academy nod for sure. Playing a part like that with his background, he could totally pull it off. See, wow, what a great
yeah,
fantasy
yeah,
cast.
yeah. But other than him, I mean, I don't know, there's a few other guys that I'm like too afraid to name. But
Oh, I
like
understand. I understand.
they're like too big. But like I have moments where I'm just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we got Denzel Washington? Like we'll never get Denzel Washington.
Well, dude, I don't know, man, because here's the deal: is I know that AMC is getting ready to do their own streaming service thing, and all of these actors are going, like perfectly fine with doing TV shows now. Why the
Yeah.
hell? I mean, anything's possible. And I think if Denzel got a hold of this book, and if he hasn't already, I mean, I don't understand how anybody could dislike this for one. I don't know. It's so unique in itself. I mean, on so many levels. So I mean, Denzel would be another great fan cast. And I mean, shit, we haven't heard from him in a while, and that's kind of seems to be the thing. You haven't heard from him in a while, then bam, they're on some streaming service show.
Well,
So,
and of course, like Jeffrey Wright would be amazing.
oh,
And who I actually, and this is just me completely like this is me just fanboying like crazy.
I'm
I would
fanboying with you right now, man.
yeah yeah no Eddie Murphy.
Oh shit.
Eddie Murphy. I mean, he's older than he looks. He's freaking Eddie Murphy, and I love Eddie Murphy. So there's a part of me that's just like, let's put some gray hair on this guy and like really let him like be this creepy old grandpa.
Oh man. Yeah, no, brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
I
So
love it.
yeah. So yeah, and that's, when I allow myself to like really like dream crazy dreams, that's what I think about.
That's awesome, man. That's yeah, I know that, like I said, I've gone on and on about how amazing Farmhand is, and about now we got a little bit of an insight as far as where the production's at on this pilot, which I know I have all the faith in the world that it is just going to explode. And yeah, yeah. Shoot. What is there anything else that you want to talk about Farmhand that you don't really want to give away quite yet? Or I mean, yeah, I know we're kind of tiptoeing around some stuff for sure, but it's also been very insightful. That's for damn sure.
I know. I mean, it's I'm just really really pleased with the whole thing. I mean, it's been easily the hardest thing I've ever made. I mean, I think Chew was just a lot of fun. I mean, I think looking back at Chew, I mean, I wasn't writing it, so that was that was one thing that was a lot easier. But it was also just a way lighter, less personal story for me. I mean, it was a lot easier to kind of, for some reason, it's a lot easier to draw comics about cybernetic killer roosters than it is to like write the story that's like really personal. That's about things I really care about. That are reflections of like parenting and being a son and being a father and like dealing with generational, issues and that sort of thing. Like,
And the setting is down in your neck of the woods too, so I mean, you could tell it is very personal. Because I mean, you're still down in Louisiana. Are you in LA right now writing scripts?
no. I'm born and raised in Louisiana. Yeah,
Right
it's
on, man.
yeah. No, I love it. I love it down here. I mean, this is
Well,
home.
the book definitely has that Cajun type of feel to it. That's for sure. Like you could tell that whoever's writing this book knows where the Jenkins family's from. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So yes. Oh man. Well, you can tell this book is so much more personal compared to Chew, and that takes nothing away from Chew at all. Just like you said, I fully agree with you. Chew was just a whole lot of fucking fun, man, and this is just it's a ride. This is a ride in its own, and this is a ride in reverse from Chew almost. But I got this question. It's been brewing with me for some time now. Speaking of Chew, I do follow Laymen quite a bit, and he's been very cryptic about Chew continuing on. Is this something that, I mean, Chew doesn't go on without Guillory, does it?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Okay.
I think that it could continue without me. I just think it would be a different thing. I
No.
think I think. See, I'm flattered by that. I'm flattered, but no, I think it could continue without me. I think it would have to be a very different book. But I will say that, you know, I can't imagine never drawing Chew again.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that I spent, the first 8 years of my career on. I love it. I put a lot into the characters and building that world. And John, I mean, John's just a great partner. I really respect everything he does. I think he's a big part. I mean, I love the guy. I mean, he's a big part of like my career, and he'll always be a big part of my career. So like, I can't picture never going back to that world. It's a matter of finding the right time and the right story to do it. But
Gotcha. Because that's kind of, I mean, I know that you're right in the meat of your own thing right now, and just the thought of you. I mean, he's flat out said Chew 2020. So, like,
I wasn't aware.
yeah, yeah. No, I feel like the tweets get taken down not long after, but I follow him very closely because I'm a super fan. I am. I mean, I love Outer Darkness, but that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah, no. I'm
so
really happy with like what he's doing with Outer Darkness, because like when he originally showed it to me, like we went back and forth, and he was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, what are you picturing art style wise?" And he's like, "Oh, like he was actually picturing something very different than what he has now. Like he was gonna do like almost photorealistic kind of hyper detail." And I was like, "No, don't do that. Like no, like this feels more like kind of
Afu
kind of
Chan.
yeah, right. It feels like that. Like I honestly like there was a part of me because I was so freaked out at the prospect of breaking out on my own and doing Farmhand, and John and I had such a good thing going that there was a part of me that wanted to draw Outer Darkness. Like there's a part of me that was like, let's just keep this thing going. But I was so far into Farmhand, and Farmhand was the project I needed to be doing. That like I just told him like I think you need a guy who's more like cartoony, quote unquote, who can
Hmm.
really like make these characters iconic. And I think Afu Chan is like phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a beast.
the only other artist at this point after reading Outer Darkness I could think that could, really follow that same tone would maybe be Erica Henderson. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah.
she's the only other person that I think would come close, but still, I don't know if it would just. Afu Chan has developed these characters in a way to where, just like you do with all of your characters, you only have to see them once to know who they are because they're so memorable. And then, I mean, you as a writer as well, you write the dialogue to where, sometimes you don't even have to know who's talking to know who's talking, if that makes sense. And Afu Chan has the same ability with John Laymen on Outer Darkness, is you just
Mhm.
know the way people talk. But at the same time, I mean, instantly you know Ogway and you know Riggs. You never have this Satalis. They're all immediately recognizable going into issue 2. There's no having to go back and recollect. And I don't know if it's just something that Layman brings out in his artist or what, but all of that stuff, it works so well with him.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good. I mean, just, after working with him so long, like I think I don't know, like he just writes really colorful characters.
Hmm.
And, I maybe I'm biased, but I can't read a John Layman script and not picture it in that kind of like I picture these guys as cartoons, like no matter what he's writing. Even when he's writing Batman, I always pictured it a bit, I pictured his stuff as more like Batman the animated series kind of stuff.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, he just is really his stuff just bounces off the page. I mean, his characters breathe. He's really,
Yeah.
really good.
I couldn't see a John Byrne doing a layman type of story. I don't think it would work right. Like,
No, no.
it's yeah. So he definitely has a flair as far as the right artist to attract and make sure that his stuff does well. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot from him. I mean, just I mean, it's you just I've always been a guy that just has learned through absorption. I learned from actually like diving into the work, whether it's reading the comics. I feel like I learned most of what I know about storytelling just through reading comics for like my entire life. And I think in terms of writing, it's been sort of the same way. Like the more I've gotten into absorbing things from other writers who are a lot better than I am, and just reading 60 something issues of John Layman scripts, like it's hard to not like observe and see, okay, how's he pacing this, why'd he move this scene here instead of here, and like you know I learned a lot about his process just over the 8 years of working together, and it's been really helpful in kind of branching out as a writer myself.
Well, man, you could definitely tell that you didn't take your time with Layman lightly. That's for sure. It's because Farmhand, it speaks for itself, man. It speaks for itself. Like, I'm gonna keep saying it. If you haven't read it, you guys, you listeners, got to go out and pick this up. There's no excuse not to. The trades are out there. Like the comic shops could still order them at this point. Let's send this baby into a second printing, and it's just gonna keep going, man. So you said that you have acknowledged that you are still reading at least Outer Darkness. I mean, being a fan myself, kind of, is there anything current that you're on right now? I know that you're a busy guy, and I can't imagine you have a whole lot of time to do current reading. But is there anything that you want to acknowledge out there that kind of has you roped in?
Oh God, I'm behind on everything.
Yeah,
No, I have an entire shelf in my office that's just books I've been accumulating for the last like 10 years, it feels like.
yeah,
I mean, the more you travel, you go to conventions, and people just give you things.
for
So I
sure.
just have a lot of stuff. the last book I really kept up with on a pretty much monthly basis was Paper Girls, by
Right
Brian
on.
K. Vaughan. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my favorite book. Other than that, Southern Bastards was another one.
Okay.
Uh, what else? I'm way behind on walking on The Walking Dead. I know it finished,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
you've got
but
time to catch up now.
yeah, I'm way behind on that one.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, I'm super behind, but I have tons of trades I haven't read yet. But like I'm getting Bitterroot. I haven't read it yet. I know it's
Bitterroot,
phenomenal.
man. That's, oh
Yeah,
my God. I
yeah.
can't recommend it enough. I really can't. I'm actually having, oh, I guess I'm spoiling this. I'm having Chuck on the show next week,
Oh
and
man, tell
I'm over the moon about it. It's
wow.
Bitterroot is it's amazing. I'm not lying when I say next to Farmhand, Bitterroot is my next most recommended book, and the only reason why Bitterroot is second is because it just hits a hard note that I don't think everybody can handle. So
Okay.
it's yeah, it's deep, man. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's on my list. God, what else? Oh man, what's Scott Snyder's new book? It's
Oh, Undiscovered Country.
yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, that's on my list.
Yes.
There's just a lot. Most of what I'm getting is Image. I mean,
Gotcha.
but I actually just got turned on to TKO Studios. Um,
Okay.
like I just got a big box of books from those guys that look phenomenal, and I'm gonna sift through all that stuff. There's just, I mean, I don't ever remember a time where there was this much high quality content coming out,
It's
simultaneously.
it's so much that I had to start a fucking podcast, man. Like that's what it is. I know that not everybody can catch up to it. And I decided I'm gonna be the guy that dedicates my life to making sure that I'm able to get as much of this stuff out there as possible because there is an abundance of it. And yes, no, I feel you. It's hard. I don't see how anybody could keep up with all this. I can't keep up with all this. This is my damn job at this point. So.
Hmm.
Yeah. So not so much from the big two. I mean, if you're an indie creator, I would imagine that's kind of what you want to stick with, and the big two are. It's
Uh,
really hard to keep up with all that, but
yeah, I kept up. Well, I read the first trades of sort of the Rebirth stuff.
okay.
Like I read the new Superman stuff, of at least the first trade of it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And it was, I
I
mean,
do like. You mean Bendis's Superman right now?
no. This was
Oh, the first Rebirth Superman.
yeah. This is
Okay,
like
gotcha.
Superman and Son.
Okay, gotcha.
Like that stuff was phenomenal. And I actually, I mean, I was a big two guy. Like Death of Superman, Return of Superman, all that stuff, Nightfall, Night Quests, all that stuff, Night's End. That was my stuff. That was my jam. Like that was
Gotcha.
when I was first like buying comics on my own. That's what I was buying. So like, I hadn't read Superman since those years. It's been forever. So
Gotcha.
picking that stuff up, the other, the older Rebirth stuff. I guess it was Lois and Clark. I guess it was Superman and Son, something like that. All that stuff I really really enjoyed.
Right on. Well, it's like I said, it's hard to keep up, but all those stories, like a good portion of those stories, the Nightfall and the Death of Superman, those were all just redone in these oversized one shots called Tales from the Dark Multiverse, where they put these twists on it. So in
Hmm.
the Death of Superman, it's Lois Lane getting, she somehow gets Superman's powers, and she goes through and she's pissed off that Superman died, and she's punishing everyone that allowed it, and it's just Tales from the Dark Multiverse, and Nightfall's super twisted. So yeah, they're just little one shots. So being that you personally said those stories, like I'm gonna have to recommend those. So I'd pick
Okay.
those up, yeah, because it's no investment at all. It just what if type of situations, and they are dark, man. They're fun. Snyder
Well,
wrote the Nightfall one, so it's gonna
oh
be
wow.
super good. Yeah.
I'm actually curious. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with it. I've been, occasionally I'll see something online that kind of piques my interest, but the Doomsday Clock stuff looks kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, man. I'm waiting for that 12th issue so I could binge on that. And I'm glad because I would have forgot about it all because it's like 6 months behind schedule. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it should be done by the end of the year. Or, yeah, by the end of the year, and then it's gonna set up this whole event apparently in the DC universe. So I'm very very excited about that. I can't. I'm never disappointed by Jeff Johns. So
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a huge like I didn't read the last round of Watchmen, like whatever that was.
oh
what,
yeah, I
what,
don't think anybody did.
Yeah, I didn't read it, but there's just something about this that actually does kind of pique my interest. Like I know Alan Moore's like not into this at all. Like
Well,
I respect that, but there's just something about it that I probably eventually will check out, and I'm curious.
right on, man. Right on. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, with this type of it's a big book as far as the DC universe and the magnitude of it all. So I think really, if you want to have any idea what's going on in DC from here on out, might have to. They might be one of those types of situations, but it's still interesting regardless. It's not just a gun to the head type of situation. It still does look entertaining, no doubt.
Cool.
But all right, well, cool, man. I think it's. I know it's getting late down there in Louisiana, and I know that you've got a family and stuff to do. This was incredibly eye-opening. We got a little bit on the maybe a possible hint at the future of Chew. Definitely some farmhand insight for sure. Which, once again, can't recommend enough. Go out, put this on your pull list, listeners. And we got new, this, where we are as far as the production of AMC's next biggest hit TV show. I think the listeners got a lot out of this, Rob. I thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything else I mean, I'm sure you've got stuff to plug. I mean, I can go on and on. I could ask you about what's to come, but I think I'm just going to focus on the fact that Farmhand is in my life right now, and I'm okay with that. Normally, I say, what's next after Farmhand? Right now, I'm perfectly fine with just Farmhand.
Cool.
I'll
Cool.
leave that
Yeah.
at that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really the thing I really want people to check out. I mean, I think it's the audience is very, very loyal. The book's done well, but I think there's a whole lot of people that haven't read it yet. And I think it's a very unique book, and I think I just don't think there's anything else quite like it. And I think the first two trades are out, so give it a try. And it is a finite story. It is going somewhere. Beyond that, I can't say what comes after that. I'm glad you're not asking the what's next question, because people, it's the weirdest thing. Like after we released Chew #1, I actually had people coming up to me saying, "So what are you doing next?" It's like I just started Chew.
Right.
It's like I have no idea what I'm doing next. So like yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat with this. Like Farmhand, I know I'll be working on until probably 2021. So yeah, beyond that, we'll cross that when we get to it.
Yeah, we know you're gonna kill whatever comes next. So I mean, I'm like I said, I am content. I am, and I could say that as a comic book fan. I am a comic book fan that is content. Well, I'm a rare breed right now. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm so happy that you took the time to come on this podcast and give this insight, and let people know what this book means to you. I can go on and on about how I feel about the book, but to hear it come from your mouth, I think just means so much more, and I appreciate it. I do. I'm thank you.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for having me on, and thanks for supporting Chew and supporting Farmhand. I mean, it's I occasionally I would see on my like I think you would tag me on Instagram or something, and I was like, what is he doing? Like he's going through
Yep.
every volume of Chew. Like who
Yep.
does that?
Yep. Well, I know that it's something, so here's I went through, and I thought originally, when someone said you got to read Chew, I thought, well, I'm gonna get on a YouTube video and maybe Comics Explained will give me a quick 5-minute rundown. Like, well,
Mm.
shit, even Comics Explained doesn't even have anything out there, and I was like, I'm gonna be the guy that explains Chew to people. And ever since then, I still got 2 more volumes. I'm not done. Honestly, if you weren't on the podcast this week, I would be doing volume 11 of Chew.
Oh wow! So you
Yeah.
haven't read the end of Chew yet?
No, I haven't got there yet. I'm reading it along with the fans, so I don't want to think of it as a reaction video by any means.
Oh wow. Okay.
No, because I don't
Yeah.
shoot video. I don't shoot video, so it's not a
Okay.
reaction type of situation. But yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah. I like to express my joy as raw as possible. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully you still respect me after you read the ending of Chew.
There's nothing you could do, man. There's nothing you could do. I mean, I've already, done this trade negotiation. So, I mean, the fact that Pollo's dead is enough for me to go, there's nothing. Nothing is off limits. I mean,
Yeah,
you could Thanos snap and say, 100% of the Chew universe is turned to dust. And I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking fine with that because it was done. And I mean, I know it's going to be good. It's not going to
yeah,
be some cheesy, oh shit, we painted ourselves into a corner, time travel type of situation.
yeah. And then what's crazy? I mean, and people are always kind of astounded by it. They're like, "Was this the plan all along? Like, this was always the plan." Like John told me the ending to Chew when I first met him. Before I had even actually signed on, he kind of like told me the ending. I was like, I don't think you were supposed to tell me the ending. I haven't signed on yet. And but yeah, like we were really. I actually just reread. I haven't, occasionally I have all the Chew trades on my bookshelf, and occasionally I'll kind of whip one off and flip through it. And I actually reread the first or the last issue recently,
Yeah.
and it held together really really well. I mean, it's very it's a departure, but it's a very natural progression for the story. So I'm actually really happy with it.
Right on, right on. I know that I'm not going to be disappointed. Like I said, it's one of my favorite things ever in comics, and like we've said, in other conversations, I read a lot of stuff, man. I love all of this stuff, and the Chew is just something that sticks with me. I take all these notes, and it's just it resonates with me so much, and I know that there's no letting me down. Don't worry about that, man. I'm still gonna be a super fan.
Cool, I appreciate it.
And you're gonna continue to be tagged for at least 2 more volumes. That's for sure. Hopefully, when Chew comes back, you'll see. I'll be tagging you in that stuff too. But that's wishful thinking for now.
Yeah.
So we gotta focus on Farmhand.
Hmm.
But all right, Rob, thanks so much, man. I've kept you on. We've got issue 12 coming out. What day now?
This December 18th.
December 18th, right on. So we've got time to digest 11, and there's a lot to digest too. So I think it's fitting. We get I know it would be about 4 weeks out, almost exactly. So yeah, no extended break or anything like that. Right on schedule, man.
Yep.
Oh, so excited. Well, it's been a pleasure, Rob. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And if there's ever anything at all that you want to talk about, want to plug on this show, there's always an open mic for you here, man. You're welcome on the Cheers to Comics podcast anytime, brother.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for the support, and yeah, well, this is a lot of fun. We'll do this again.
Definitely. Well, we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, Slurds, I don't even know what to say after that. After all those words, I'm speechless. Rob Guillory really is a hero of mine, somebody I look up to, and I'm not lying when I say this is somebody that, this is kind of a long-term goal, so I'm very, very pleased that this went down. He's just the nicest guy. the nicest guy. What did we learn? Well, we learned the progress of the AMC Farmhand show. We learned who Guillory would want to play in a fantasy land, which I still think is entirely possible, because AMC got that money, and TV doing for actors ain't nearly as shameful as it used to be, especially when you get into that streaming game. And more Chew. I'll let you buy into that at the same level I did. Obviously, there was no open answer there, but take it for what it is. I think it's good news, but it's all speculation at that point. But the fact is we got stuff. Rob Guillory, he was the man, still is the man. Go out, get you some Farmhand. Go back, listen to my episodes of trade negotiations on Chew. I'm still gonna finish it out. I still got 2 more volumes to deliver. And from what it sounds like, he's about to blow my mind when it comes to the end. So I'm super excited about that. Slurds, you got to support this podcast, man, and do so by going to Patreon. But for as little as $1, $1, $1, you find $1. I mean, on your unluckiest day, you could find $1. Head on over to patreon.com/cheers to comics and, well, join up. Become a member of the Slurred Army. I'm kind of kicking that name around. It's not really sticking, but be a Slurred. And, yeah, it really does help the production of this podcast. You know, I mean, I have no problem spending money on these books by any means. And I spend a lot of money on these books. I'm not a pirater. That's why I take pictures of all of them. And, yeah, no, and that's the other thing. Don't pirate your fucking books. Don't be that guy or girl. Just don't be that person. So, but the fact is yes, I acknowledge they cost money, and I'm here to deliver that content, and every little dollar helps out. But, you know, you start joining the higher tiers, and you end up getting comics in return, so, yeah. But, yeah, you do so, Patreon, all that good stuff. There's also the easy way of doing it, the non-financial way of doing it, and that's just leaving a review. Apple Podcast, drop a 5-star review. It puts us up in the charts. I say us, me, the podcast, and I say us as us. We are us. We're all one big slurred fucking family, right? So yeah, no, it boosts us up, and then bam, we get to the more people get to listen because of exposure, because of algorithms and science and internet mumbo jumbo that I don't know that stuff, but I'm told that's what you're supposed to do. So please do that. And, you know, I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and, I've enjoyed this, and thanks for tuning in, Slurds. Y'all read responsibly. Cheers, fuckers.
Good day. I'm Ken.
And I'm Steve, and we're the hosts of the Nerd Cantina show where nerd culture and society intersect.
Whether you come for entertainment news
or some space and science talk,
we are here to keep you informed on weekly nerd topics and discuss how they affect us as a society.
As well as having in-depth interviews in our Cantina conversation and Fight Me Fridays.
Just like any cantina, we want you to join in on the conversation.
From our blog at thenerdcantina.com, our voicemail line, or our closed Facebook group at thenerdcantina.com/community where we really get to interact with our fans.
So pull up a stool and get involved in our community.